$5 million. That's the number on your laptop screen right now. In a room with one lamp on, a coffee mug going cold beside the keyboard, the hood of your sweatshirt still up from the walk home. Across town, in a club, 3 of your closest friends are laughing about you. Alex is mid-sentence, gesturing with a glass of Negroni. He's struggling, man. Have you seen his place? Same hoodie every week. Smith laughs. I feel bad for him, honestly. John raises his glass to getting your life together eventually. You are not there. You already know exactly what they think of you, because you built it that way. You could correct them in about 4 seconds. Pull out your phone, screenshot the balance, drop it in the group chat, and every assumption in that bar collapses. You don't do it. You've never done it. And tonight, sitting in a room they'd probably describe as sad if they saw it, you're not entirely sure anymore whether that's discipline or something closer to hiding. Rewind 6 years. You were 28, sharing a 2-bedroom with a roommate who left dishes in the sink for a week at a time, working a job that paid $54,000 a year. Alex, Smith, and John were already the version of themselves you're watching now. Good jobs, better instincts for spending them. You went out with them twice a month back then. You always ordered the second cheapest thing on the menu, the way people do when they're doing math nobody can see. One night, Smith picked up the whole table's bill on a whim, waved off the argument, said, "Next time's on you." There was no next time you could actually afford. You started declining invitations instead of explaining why. That's where the silence started, not as a strategy, as an escape hatch. The first real money moment was almost embarrassing in how small it was. $6,200. You didn't spend on anything. No trip, no jacket, no gesture. You opened a brokerage account on a Tuesday during your lunch break, put it into an index fund, and told exactly nobody. Not because you'd read some book about stealth wealth, because saying it out loud felt like inviting a conversation you didn't have the energy for. 6 years later, that instinct would look like a philosophy. At the time, it was just tired. By 31, the account read $61,000. You picked up a second stream almost by accident, a freelance skill from your day job that a small company needed 10 hours a week of, paying $85 an hour, cash you never touched, routed straight into the same account before it could become a dinner out or a pair of shoes. John asked once what you did with your weekends. You said, "Not much." That sentence was doing a lot of quiet work. At 33, the crisis came, the way it always does. Not a market crash. A phone call. Your mother needed $9,400 for a procedure insurance wouldn't fully cover. You transferred it the same afternoon without blinking, without telling anyone you'd done it, without letting the number register as anything other than a decision. Smith found out you'd helped out. Your mother mentioned it once, vaguely, at a family gathering Smith happened to attend. Smith's read on it was simple. You'd probably scrape together whatever you could. He said as much to Alex later that week, not unkindly. He's a good guy. I just worry about him financially. You heard about that comment secondhand and said nothing. You let it stand. It was easier than the alternative, and by then, silence had a rhythm to it you didn't want to interrupt. At 35, the portfolio crossed $1.2 million on a Wednesday. You checked the number standing in a grocery store parking lot, and you felt nothing dramatic, a kind of low hum. You drove home in the same 2015 Corolla you'd had since you were 27. The one with the dent in the rear bumper John once joked about, asking when you were finally going to treat yourself. You said you were saving up. You were not lying, technically. You were also not saving up for anything you intended to buy. That's the year the gap stopped being financial and became something else, something closer to distance. You'd sit at dinner and listen to Alex talk about a $780 monthly car payment like it was a minor inconvenience, and you'd feel a strange, specific loneliness, not because you envied him, but because the version of you he was talking to wasn't really you. It was a character you'd built out of hoodies and declined invitations, and a Corolla with a dent in it. A convincing one, maybe too convincing. At 37, you crossed $3 million. You told no one. Not your mother, not a therapist, not the group chat, not a diary. The only place that number existed outside your own head was a login screen and an accountant named Vance who reviewed your filings twice a year and asked, every single time, the same dry question, any lifestyle changes I should know about? You always said no. It was. And this is the part that unsettles you now, almost entirely true. Which brings you back to tonight, 5 million. A number that took 6 years, one grocery store parking lot, one phone call to your mother, one freelance gig nobody at that bar knows about, and roughly 400 declined invitations to build. And across town, the same 3 people who've known you for a decade are raising a glass to your supposed struggle, meaning every word of it, not because they're cruel, but because you handed them exactly the evidence they needed to believe it. Here's what nobody tells you about hiding this well. It doesn't stay clean. Somewhere in year 4, you noticed you'd started performing the poverty a little, not just allowing it, wearing the older jacket on purpose when you knew Alex would see it, mentioning a tight month that wasn't actually tight, just to keep the story consistent. That's the part that sits strange with you at 1 a.m., staring at a balance that could buy the bar they're sitting in outright. You didn't just protect a number, you built a whole second person to carry it for you. And some nights you're not sure which one of you is actually real. There's a version of tonight where you walk into that bar, order the same $19 mocktail, sit down mid-laugh, and just say it. Show them the screen. Watch Smith's face rearrange itself in real time. Watch Alex go quiet in a way he's never been quiet with you before. Watch John try to remember every joke he's made about your car in the last 2 years. 4 seconds, and the story they've told themselves about who you are collapses into something they'll spend the rest of the night trying to reconcile. You don't do it tonight either. You close the laptop instead, the number still glowing faintly on the screen for half a second after the lid comes down, the coffee mug cold, the hoodie still on. You think about the 4 seconds it would take. You think about the 4 seconds it would take. You think about the 4 seconds it would explain. And you think, not for the first time, that the silence you built to protect yourself might have quietly started protecting something else instead. Not your money, but the distance between you and the people who are, tonight, laughing about a version of you that stopped being true 4 years ago. So here's the honest question, the one you don't have an answer to yet. Sitting alone in a room they'd feel sorry for you in if they saw it. If the truth costs you nothing financially, but costs you the story you've spent 6 years perfecting, do you still tell it? Or do you let them keep believing you're the one who's struggling?